Great. I would like to introduce our featured speaker for today's meeting, Paul Pira with the Geauga Park District. And we've been working with Paul and others at Geauga Park District on the Spring Brook restoration project for a few years now, going back to getting that project incorporated into the watershed plan and helping the Park District to secure funding for the project through the Ohio EPA Section 319 program. Our former Associate Director, Alicia Beatty, spearheaded a lot of that initial work with Paul Pira. And since Laura Bonnell has taken over management of the project, helping Geauga Park District select a consultant and implement the project, and we'll be helping with education and outreach as well. And I believe we do have Paul Pira here on the call. And Paul, if you are able to share your screen, if you would go ahead and do so now, we really appreciate you joining us and offering this presentation. And if you're having any difficulties with sharing, Paul, let me know. You should be a co-host and able to share your screen. There it comes. I see your desktop now, but I think there it is. Great, take it away, Paul. Thank you for joining us. Oh, are you having difficulties with audio? I think you need to be unmuted. Sorry about that, Paul.
Yeah.
Try it again. There you go.
Okay, can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Great.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Pira. I'm a biologist with the Park District here. Thank you, Mayor Tomko. Thank you, Heather, and all of CRWP folks and for having me. I've worked with a lot of people over the years on this project. So, and there's literally been, I want to say, hundreds of people involved with Spring Brook and the protection of this special, unique place in Geauga County and the brook trout story. So I want to talk about that a little bit here with everyone this afternoon. Spring Brook was protected way back in 1998. Geauga Park District purchased about 32 acres of land, and specifically because of the fact that we knew that there were brook trout, native brook trout in this stream. And it was dedicated a nature preserve in 2002. So we're going to go over that. I want to talk about the special history of this site just because it is so significant. Bass Lake, we talked about this at our last meeting. If anyone was there to catch that, I did go over another project, Beaver Creek on Bass Lake. But Spring Brook also feeds into Bass Lake, and it's a natural lake, been formed, was here for 12,000 years or so. And so wonderful resource for Geauga County. This little yellow circle here is where Spring Brook is. This is an old, obviously 1927 aerial photo. You can see much of the land around Bass Lake was cleared. But Spring Brook remained intact, somewhat of I would say, a little bit of a miracle for this area. A lot of history behind this area. I covered some of that too a few months ago about Bass Lake and the really interesting history of people coming out there vacationing in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Here's some pictures of the bear caves as they're known to the locals. I actually grew up in this neighborhood too, and remember playing with my sisters here in the bear caves. And these pictures are a little older than I am, I think. So I don't think I'm in any of these, but these are some just cool history behind this area. And this is Spring Brook, definitely pictures of that area. Here's Spring Brook pictures kind of present day. And that's just absolutely beautiful cold water habitat, brook trout habitat there, very unique kind of cold water system, intact upstream areas that are just gorgeous. And that result is what I would contend is one of the most beautiful freshwater fishes, the native Ohio brook trout. So very special fish. And unfortunately, it's kind of in trouble throughout its range. And this is a whole talk in itself on brook trout. And I'll try to go through this pretty quickly, but I thought it would be interesting for folks if you don't know any of the history, just to quickly go over it again. But brook trout in Ohio are a very isolated population. Just recently, and what we have in Ohio, we've been working on this, like I said, I've been working on brook trout probably going on about 20 years, if not more. But we have something called the Ohio Brook Trout Advisory Committee. And that was started back in the late 1990s. Biologists in this area concerned with this special fish, but we knew something was wrong, and we recognized the uniqueness of this population. And what we wanted to do, especially in Spring Brook, I'll show you here, it's come up in our meetings. And more specifically, I'll tell you that the status of this species is changing this year from a threatened species in Ohio to an Ohio endangered species. And that's hot off the presses. Literally, I just kind of got off the phone last week. They just came out with an article in the Columbus Dispatch on the Ohio brook trout being upgraded to the endangered status. The history of brook trout in Ohio, boy, when the settlers came here in the early 1800s, some of the writing that we have from a very famous naturalist, Jared P. Kirtland, he only found 2 Ohio streams with speckled trout. That's what they called brook trout back then. One in Ashtabula and a little branch in the Chagrin River in Geauga County. Another really fascinating contemporary of Kirtland was this man named Theodatus Garlick. And he wrote about it too in 1857. And really cool history that I didn't even know this till not too long ago, but Theodatus Garlick was into fish breeding, and he is buried down at the cemetery, Lakeview Cemetery in Cleveland by Murray Hill, Mayfield Road. If you go down there, you can find this guy's tombstone, and it says on the tombstone, he is the first man in America to breed fish by artificial methods. Did you know that Cleveland can have that call there as the first man to breed fish by artificial methods? Pretty cool stuff for those that are into fish. Moving along about 100 years from that, a very famous ichthyologist, biologist out of Ohio State University, Milton B. Troutman, wrote the Bible, the Book of Fishes of Ohio, the Bible for us people in the fish. He wrote in that book, he pretty much speculated that brook trout were basically wiped out of Ohio. They were presumed extirpated from Ohio. And that was pretty much the feeling for most of the biologists back then. There were no longer any suitable habitats, and brook trout were gone. Well, in 1972, Dr. Andy White from John Carroll University, which I'm proud to say that he was my advisory committee and mentored me through my years in graduate school. Dr. White, lo and behold, in 1972, came up and found brook trout in 2 streams around Bass Lake, Spring Brook and Woody Brook. And so he let Milton Troutman know about this. They were good friends, and they updated the Book of Fishes of Ohio, and they kind of kept that, I will say, under wraps for a while. They didn't know whether or not they were native. They kind of speculated they may be. And so a few years on since from there, they actually did genetic testing. A lot of conservation organizations got involved, and kind of the rest is history here. They did turn out to be totally unique population. No markers of hatchery trout or anything like that in their genetics. So they are totally unique to Ohio. And that started a reintroduction program in 1996 by the Division of Wildlife with, like I said, a whole bunch of other previous directors of different park systems, Geauga Parks, Lake Metro Parks, all these great conservation organizations involved. And I have a list at the end of this talk that I do have to put on there, just because there's so many people that have given their heart and soul to this special fish and this stream that we're going to talk about in a minute. So what we did was we stocked fish from that original population, which was Spring Brook. We used that source as the source for the whole program, and we put fish into about 15 streams, in Northeast Ohio here, most of them in the Chagrin watershed. And at first, about 4, 5, 6 of them did okay, pretty good. We called that a success. But over time, we've started noticing some of them kind of petered out, and they weren't doing so well. And this map's a little outdated, or this table, I should say, is a little outdated, but 2019. But much hasn't changed since 19. We're still at about 3 streams that are self-sustaining in Ohio here. Quickly, I just wanted to show this graph. Just take away from this with the dots there. There was a marked kind of decrease in the number and size. The sizes were going up, of the numbers of the adult brook trout in Spring Brook, where we were doing our restoration, I show you the restoration projects from. The number of brook trout were going down, and we kind of wanted to know why. We had some suspicions, and this is what was going on in Spring Brook in this particular site that we've been monitoring for a number of years. Way back in the 1960s, the local residents around Spring Brook, the Bass Lake Club members, put in a small concrete dam on the stream. And they use that there's a culvert pipe. If you can see in that upper left picture, there's an old culvert pipe that they used to use to divert water from the fresh, clean, ice cold spring into Bass Lake itself to flush it out, their lagoon area, during the stagnant months of the summertime. So that concrete structure since the 1960s kind of set the level of that stream for many, many years. What ended up happening over the years, and what we noticed, was the stream cut around that. It deteriorated and dilapidated, and the stream cut around and started to suddenly drop in elevation, cutting, and started the down cutting and some really bad conditions, instability in the stream. And that's really poor brook trout habitat. I was worried about it. There were no longer any cobbles or gravels in the stream, and brook trout were, as you saw on that graph, kind of going downhill as far as the numbers go. So project timeline, in 2020, with the help of the Chagrin River Watershed Partners, we applied for a 319. We were very lucky and were awarded that by the Ohio EPA. 2021, the planning department and myself, the natural resource folks here, we went out with an RFQ and awarded the River Reach Enviroscience and GPD group. And it was a pretty quick project, really. Honestly, I had my doubts, and we were going to get all the permitting and everything through, but we did in a very short period of time. And hats off to all those folks for doing that. Our goals were 500 linear feet of stream that we wanted to restore, and we actually did 800 feet. We wanted to install some grade control structures in the form of riffles and buried rock veins, and the rock veins below finished grade. Stabilize those banks with boulders and wood, brush layering, and of course, improve the stream habitat for the brook trout, make deeper pools, and I'll show you some great pictures of that. I knew this project, I wanted to do this project for a long time, so I was after the Ohio Division of Wildlife. They were great at monitoring these streams, and so there's Kurt Wagner from Division of Wildlife, District 3. He's been in charge of brook trout monitoring for the Division of Wildlife for a number of years now. We're doing some sampling there, and we wanted to get population estimates. We knew in the degraded section of the stream, there just weren't the young of year, and the adults were diminished. So we knew something was going on there. Also, an interesting part of this project is we knew we had to take the brook trout out of the stream section that we were going to be working in. We didn't want to kill those brook trout, crush them or smash them or anything else. So knew how special they were. So we had to relocate them upstream. And so day spent out there with a lot of folks helping, and we relocated 16 adults and 133 juveniles. And we had to install these nets that you see on the stream to keep the fish from migrating back down into the restoration area. Of course, it rained, a hellacious event, rainstorm after that, and so it blew those out. We had to redo those nets several times. This is the site. The yellow dots where that old dilapidated dam was. And here's some of the project plans. I don't expect you really to be able to read those, but GPD group came up with some great plans. We wanted to put in about 8 new pools and a bunch of new riffles and some areas to for grade control. Here's some woody bank boulder protection details there. Here's July 2021 staging area. We brought in, I will say they brought in an awful lot of material to this project. I was surprised at just how much came in and how much they used. It was an awful lot. Pictures of dewatering here, working in the stream channel. I will say that they were excellent at doing this. You could almost not tell that when they finished up that there was equipment this size anywhere near this stream. Here's some pictures of newly installed riffles, beautiful habitat, new channel, channel stabilized, brook trout food, young a year habitat for brook trout. We also have some great brush layering, woody debris added to the pools, again, stabilizing those banks and providing great brook trout habitat. Big thing for brook trout are having nice deep pools for those adults to be safe. And they certainly recreated those out there. Very happy about that. Spawning habitat, really important, of course, for these animals. We added an awful lot of gravel. Here's some more just pictures of stabilizing some of the banks. We raised that stream bed quite a bit. Take a look at this before and after of the stream being totally raised up with all that, all those cobbles and gravels and riffles. Another area picture of stabilizing. I'll go quickly. We also had to disconnect neighbors. Pipe was running into the stream, which we weren't real thrilled about that. So we disconnected that, cut it off at the property line and ran it into the nearby wetland area to filter out. Also had a tree planting area that we did, and thanks to Best Sand Corporation, they donated a lot. I should say a lot of that gravel that was all donated by the local quarry, Best Sand, and they also helped out with tree planting. Also, Laura helped, and the Chagrin River Watershed Partners. So yeah, going through here we go. We've got some future plans. There is still some warm water inputs that we want to address, more habitat work. And of course, we're going to monitor our brook trout populations. I have a really good feeling that the brook trout are going to immediately respond very well to this restoration project. Just 100% difference, night and day to what was there. We have great stuff going on now. Thank you to Chagrin River Watershed Partners for all the grant writing, grant administration help, going over the review of the plans and consultants. Thank you for that. Of course, last but not least, Ohio EPA. We could not have done this without Ohio EPA. Thank you so much for that, EPA folks. Fantastic project. Again, all these folks, the history of this fish and this particular stream, highly significant in Ohio. Lots and lots of people. I could fit hundreds of names on this if we wanted to go through it, but that's it in a nutshell, quick and dirty. But I want to thank everyone at CRWP for helping us with this project. We're grateful, and I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you, Heather.
Paul, there's one question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Greg Student wants to know the source of Spring Brook, and is the water warming?
Sure. It is a concern. We have over the years, we've had these things called hobo loggers, which are little data loggers that we put in the stream, and we monitor stream temperatures with those. And it is, I can't say that it's been warming dramatically. I do know that there's more surface water with, of course, these large rain events. We are planning on putting those hobo loggers back in the stream. We did that for a number of years. Back in the mid 2000s, we were doing a lot of that, and we got really good data. So our plan is this year to put them back in and compare from 20 years ago almost. kind of the temperature data. The sources primarily are springs. So luckily, you know, that temperature, that stream is, in the summertime, it's probably 16 degrees C, which is like 60s, low 60s. You step into that in August and it's without any protection, you're going to want to step out of the stream after about 5 minutes. It's that cold. So yes, I will say that I think anyway that there's probably more stormwater coming into that stream over the in the form of course, these new sudden rains and a lot more rain going on, a lot more heavier precipitation going on. So thank you.